Hello, everyone. Hello, I am Joshua William Gelb, and welcome to Theater in Quarantine. It is Thursday, April 29th, and it is now 9:02 p.m. here in New York City. Thank you for tuning in and joining me for all the different ways Commodore Matthew Peiyi could have died before opening Japan, but didn't, by Julia Izumi. Presented by Theater in Quarantine and New George's. I'm like weirdly neurotic that my mic isn't on right now, so I keep looking to see that it is, but it is. It's on. You can hear me, right? I want to share a couple of things before we get started. Now, first, what you're about to see is live. This is The Late Show. This is not a film or a pre-recorded broadcast. This is happening right now in a closet in my apartment and down in the financial district where Julia's going to be tuning in to us or streaming into us, or we're going to be seeing Julia later. It's been a year since I converted the closet behind me into Theater in Quarantine, and along with my collaborators and co-creative director, Katie Rose McLaughlin, well, I want to say thank you for, again, tuning in and helping make this project such a success. If you like what you see tonight, please feel free to give us a donation. Big or small, you can do so at any point during the show, directly in the chat. Or you can go to the donation link, which is in the video description. It takes you to our Fractured Atlas page, where you can make a tax-deductible donation. Any and all proceeds go directly to the artists whose work you're about to see tonight. You can also subscribe to our YouTube channel and stay up to date on all things TiQ. Okay, I think we're almost ready. Tonight's show will be approximately 35 minutes. And if you want to say hi to Julia, Katie Rose, Caroline, Peiyi, Renee, the entire team, I think, is going to be here at the 9 p.m. talkback. Please stay tuned after the show. We're going to be chatting, and we'll answer any questions you want to put in the chat. All right, let's get started. I'm going to take a brief 1-minute break so I can get into places. Thank you again, and enjoy all the different ways that Commodore Matthew Peiyi could have died before opening Japan, but didn't. Matthew Calbraith Peiyi was born in 1794. At that time, the child mortality rate in the white settler population of North America was pretty high. About 46% of children did not make it to their 5th birthday. This was mostly due to the highly contagious diseases of childhood, which included scarlet fever, diphtheria, diarrhea of infancy, and, oh, Johnny, I don't know what to do with that bloody cough you have, but maybe it has something to do with the infected scab on your knee. Maybe the best thing to do is amputate your leg. Whoops, maybe amputating your leg wasn't the best answer. So sorry, your cough still hasn't gone away. Peiyi and his 7 siblings all lived well past their 5th birthday, which was probably due to a lot of wealth and a lot of luck. Also maybe growing up in Rhode Island. Sea air really is good for your health. Anyway, the point is, it was highly likely for him to catch a highly contagious disease of childhood. One particularly severe outbreak of yellow fever in Philadelphia started due to the 1793 arrival of white French enslavers from Haiti who were fleeing the Haitian Revolution. So even on an already colonized territory, different colonizers brought even more disease. The 1793 outbreak started a series of yellow fever epidemics along the East Coast throughout the next few decades, any of which Peiyi could have encountered in his youth. By the way, when the white French enslavers arrived in Philadelphia, the city wanted them to quarantine for 2 weeks in case they carried diseases, but couldn't figure out a way to enforce it. I'm just thinking maybe a young Matthew Perry liked to take walks in the woods of Rhode Island, and a big rock could have just, fallen on top of him at any moment. So a young Perry is on a stroll in the woods, and he's like, oh, I'll take a nap here on this mossy green, because I treat everywhere I go like it's my personal backyard. And, this moose is also on a stroll, and just, squashes him like a bug. A young Perry is on a stroll in the woods, which he really should stop doing, by the way. It's clearly very dangerous. And he puts his hand on the remains of a splintered tree. And he's just hanging out. And then a rabbit runs out of the bushes and scares him. And he moves so suddenly that his hand just... Ooh, ow, ooh. Oh, yikes. Okay, a big splinter is very painful, but would that really kill him? He pulls out the splinter and it's just like blood everywhere. Peiyi didn't actually spend most of his life in the woods. He spent it at sea. All the men in Peiyi's family were part of the Navy, and Peiyi himself joined at the age of 15. I don't know how well he swam, but I can't imagine it being very well. I mean, have you seen his face? This one almost really did happen. Peiyi was on the USS President during the War of 1812, and an opposing shot hit one of the ship's cannons, which then exploded and killed several men. Now, in reality, Peiyi was only injured, but this explosion could have killed him if he was just a few inches closer, if he didn't have all that luck, goddammit. Now, in that case, technically, he would have died by lack of luck. Now? Okay. I thought cabin fever was exclusively afflicting those living on ships because of the 1996 musical adventure comedy Muppet Treasure Island. Well, in that, the crew sings a song about how they all have cabin fever. The song is called Cabin Fever. Now, cabin fever can actually strike any person who's in an isolated or confined situation for a long period of time. But that includes people on Navy ships. Cabin fever is not a life-threatening disease itself, but those afflicted could be led
to irrational decisions that could potentially threaten their life or the life of the group of people they are confined with, according to Wikipedia. I don't know what Peiyi's favorite food was, but it could have been shrimp. Nasty people really like shrimp. And shrimp can be deadly if you have an allergy, especially if it's an allergy you unknowingly develop later in life. Shark attacks are generally more common in the Atlantic Ocean, which is where Peiyi sailed for most of his time in the 1810s and 20s, particularly during the period where he was working under orders of the American Colonization Society. Now, if you hear that name and you think to yourself, boy, that sounds like a messed up society masquerading as abolitionists, but are still very, very racist, you would be right. Now, at this time, Peiyi was in command of the USS Shark, which is so ironic because he could have been killed by one. I do want to be clear. Sharks, like any animal, rarely attack unprovoked. I don't know. I get the feeling sharks are generally anti-racist, and Peiyi's appearance in their waters on the way to Liberia was provocation enough. Or, you know, maybe a kraken attack is more realistic than a shark attack. Sure. In 1822, Peiyi was sent to physically claim Key West. This involved sailing to the island, taking an American flag, sticking it in the ground, and striking a pose. Obviously. But we all know the weather down there is unpredictable. Just checking. Any particular fire, or... Oh. I mean, yeah, sure, I guess random fires happen all the time, but for one to kill him, it really must have been some fire. Hey. Hey. Hey! Peiyi was a portly man with a hefty appetite for food and drink, mostly drink, but let's focus on the food for now. From 1845 to 1847, Peiyi fought in the Mexican-American War. He fought most of his battles on his gun ships, but at least a few battles on land, and once he lands, he has to grab a bite somewhere, right? So, he takes one bite of food in Mexico and realizes how it tastes so much more amazing than any of the food he's ever had. Obviously, he's only had white people food so far, and Peiyi just keeps eating and eating and eating until... He also had to have been eating so much fish, right? How can you not die from mercury poisoning, right? No. Wait, again? Oh, already. I see. In 1852, U.S. President Millard Fillmore assigned Peiyi the mission to force Japan open to trade. The country had been closed to almost all Western countries for over 200 years. Peiyi then started collecting as much information about Japan as he could, studying what writings he could find on its defense patterns, its culture, its people, and maybe in that process he develops a strange kind of obsession. An obsession that just festers inside him like this longing manifests as a poison inside him, this desire, it. Wait, I wasn't... Peiyi steps on this enormous rusty nail and he gets tetanus. He has a fingernail and just on a random whim decides not to cut ever, and the nail accidentally stabs him in the... A time portal opens and a pterodactyl just flies in at the exact right moment and just... Wait, down? Oh, up is way better. Wait, any particular kind or... Ew. Can you really die from... Oh, come on! Okay, so, just as Peiyi arrives in Japan, right before he lands, he slips on a banana peel and falls into a...
Hello. How are you?
I am Commodore Matthew Peiyi.
Are you Commodore Matthew Peiyi?
I am Commodore Matthew Peiyi.
Are you Commodore Matthew Peiyi, who fought in the War of 1812, thereby expanding of the American Empire further into indigenous peoples' lands?
I am Commodore Matthew Peiyi.
Are you Commodore Matthew Peiyi, who worked for the American Colonization Society, an organization that believed that formerly enslaved peoples should not live in the United States, thereby further preventing black liberation?
I am Commodore Matthew...
Commodore Matthew Peiyi, who claimed Key West for the United States, thereby refusing to acknowledge the people of the Culasa and Tequesta tribes, whose land it actually was.
I am Commodore Matthew...
Are you Commodore Matthew Peiyi, who fought in the Mexican-American War, thereby killing a large number of innocent Mexican civilians, and even further expanding the American Empire?
I am Commodore...
Commodore Matthew Peiyi, who, with cannons and guns, with threat of invasion and attack, forcibly opened Japan to trade with the United States, thereby starting Japan's westernization and militarization?
I am Commodore Matthew Peiyi.
Thank you, Mr. Peiyi. As you have confirmed your identity, this conversation will now proceed to kill you. Through this conversation, you will realize all the different ways you have contributed to white supremacy, mass death, and cultural erasure. All the different ways you have harmed communities who continue to be oppressed by the American empire, all the different ways in which your life embodied colonization. This realization, the insurmountable amount of guilt and despair and anger and anguish, the pain that you feel about all the different lives you've destroyed, it will kill you, it will eat you alive. It will literally eat you alive.
I'm feeling the pain. But you said it literally eats him alive. Even though you said literally? Yeah, sure.
This realization, the insurmountable amount of guilt and despair and anger and anguish, the pain that you feel about all the different lives you've destroyed, it will kill you, it will eat you alive. It will literally eat you alive.
Well, I'm not, because I'm an actor. So, you want a realistic performance of the pain of remorse. Okay.
And anguish, the pain that you feel about all the different lives you've destroyed, it will kill you, it will eat you alive. It will literally eat you alive.
Would he, though? Yes, I would, but I'm not Matthew Perry. Wow. I know, I'm just saying. Commodore Matthew Perry, not the actor, had options. And of all the different options, he chose a life path where he agreed to murder and threaten people, take land on behalf of America. I think he understood what he was doing. He just didn't have the capacity to care. So to realistically portray him for feeling pain, or portray him as feeling pain for causing pain, and that's impossible. That's a lot of pressure to put on yourself for a 17-page YouTube theater thingy. And also, you already invoked a man's death 29 times. I think it's pretty violent. fictionally killing a nasty colonizer who's, already long gone is very different from threatening an entire country with giant gunboats to change its way of existing just for monetary and cultural exploitation. Yes, he did a boatload of bad business, but the opening of Japan was the big one. Yeah, gee, I wonder who they learned to be colonizers from. Look, I don't want to play a what's worse game. I said opening Japan was the big one because it's the one that affected you the most. Yeah, and of all the many, he's the one whose legacy directly impacted you. Why are you trying to minimize that? Take back the power. take back the space, take up all the space and power. That's really fair. If catharsis is what you want, maybe you should kill him by gun. I mean, most of the deaths you mentioned are accidental or circumstantial, except for the animals. Wait, because whales are majestic and peaceful. I got it. But guns are intentional. And it'd be quick and simple, and it would use his own tool against him. Okay. Then, what do you want to do now? He could have. But being lost at sea doesn't necessarily mean death. He could have just lost his way. Sometimes when people say lost at sea, they just mean vanish.
Growing up, my parents would take me to Japan once a year, and I would spend one whole week with my extended family at this one inn by this one beach. I always had a hard time enjoying that week, mostly because I was a huge brat. I complained that it took way too long to get there. I said that the inn was crusty, that the beach was dirty. I mean, the beach was dirty. I would get a splinter or a cut from broken glass every time I would walk on it. But I also had a hard time because I was spending time with these strangers, or people who felt like strangers, even though I understood that they were my family. I mean, I only saw them once a year. They were family. They knew each other. But I was just also there, invading their... Because of this experience, I used to think that I really hated the beach and all ocean or sea-related things, but now all I do is crave the sea, or rather just the smell of the sea. I'm looking for it everywhere I go. Even when I'm somewhere landlocked, I look for the nearest aquarium or fish market. I understand now that it is an immense privilege to have a strong connection to your heritage, to have grown up with experience in 2 different countries, but it was really hard to appreciate that then when I was growing up, because I'd feel like a stranger in my own family, and then I would come home and be told all the different ways that I didn't belong here, in this country either. Sometimes I think that I'm always looking for the smell of the sea because I'm trying to go back to those once-a-year weeks and tell my younger self, appreciate this. Really appreciate this. Then maybe you will stay in Japanese school and learn all the kanji. And maybe you will not beg your mom to change your lunch or speak English in front of your friends. And maybe you won't spend hours staring at the mirror wondering why you weren't born with a normal nose or normal eyes. And maybe you wouldn't have to learn how to make an origami whale for this piece because you would have already learned. And you would have remembered. Or maybe, I'm always looking for sea air because sea air is just really good for your health.
Hello, everyone. Thank you all so much. Gonna turn off that. The music's done. Oh, wonderful. Oh, hi, I'm Joshua William Gelb, and you just watched Julia Izumi's all the different ways Commodore Matthew Perry could have died before opening Japan, but didn't. This was a co-pro between Theater in Quarantine, and we are just so thrilled to have them, New Georges. So we're going to talk a bit about the show, and we'd love for you to stick around and ask any questions that you like. Just put them in the chat, and we'll keep an eye out for them. I think we've got almost all of the collaborators joining us for this chat, so I'm going to just get them on Zoom while I continue talking Theater in Quarantine, which if you haven't subscribed to yet, you should subscribe to. We do shows every 3 weeks, and we got one coming up in 3 weeks with Caridad Switch and La Mama and Culture Hub, and we are very, very excited about it. Almost there. If you enjoyed the piece, please consider making a donation. You can make a donation in the chat right here. You can also donate at our Fractured Atlas page. So I think we're ready. So allow me to introduce the creative team behind all the different ways Commodore Matthew Perry could have died before opening Japan, but didn't. Here they are. Hey, Katie Rose, are you there?
I'm here.
All right, I think this is working. So, first off, this is Katie Rose McLaughlin, who co-directed this performance with me and is also the co-creative director of Theater in Quarantine. Katie Rose, let's get the introduction started.
Oh yeah, let's do it. Do you have a beverage? Do you have some water? Do you have a cocktail?
Are you trying to get rid of me?
No, I just want to make sure you have everything you need.
I got a beverage, and I even got my mic belt off, so I'm really.
Oh my goodness, we're doing great.
I'm gonna de-rib it.
Oh yeah. Because it's the late show.
It's a late show.
Gotta loosen up a little bit. Hi everybody. We're so happy that you were here and you joined us for this beautiful, beautiful show. Written by Julia Izumi. Julia, do you want to introduce yourself?
Yeah, sure. Yes. I'm Julia Izumi. I am the playwright and briefly performing text, playing the role of text. Yeah.
Wonderful.
Something else?
No, you said all the things.
Great.
You did so good. We'll ask you more questions later. Susan, you want to introduce yourself?
Yes, I'm Susan Bernfield. I'm the artistic director, producer of New Georges, who got to co-produce with you this amazing show. Hurrah! Woo! Such a privilege.
So grateful. Caroline, you want to introduce yourself?
Sure. Hi, I'm Caroline Voagen Nelson, and I was the animator on the theater piece. And I'm in my studio right now, so you can kind of see behind the scenes a bit with shooting stop motion with green screen. And I just had such a joy working on this piece with everyone.
We're so happy to have you. Ooh, yes. This is a special treat coming to you from Singapore, where it is 9 a.m. after we got done working on the show to noon our time, which, well, no. It was like 2.
It was like 2.
It was like 2.
You haven't slept.
Renee has gotten no sleep, but beautiful. Renee, will you introduce yourself?
Good morning, everybody from across the world. I've just woken up. I am Renee. I did the sound design for the show.
Yay, we're so happy you could join us for this, for the talkback. And Peiyi is going to stop by. I think Peiyi's in tech until like right about now. So we'll probably pop in 10 or so minutes.
And I think that's the answer to the first question that I can see, which is from Sarah Walsh, a dear friend of TiQ, who made that amazing cardboard hat. That is Peiyi.
Peiyi!
Who? I believe may have been spray painting it in a car across the street from my apartment this afternoon. So
It's possible.
yeah, it's possible.
I also have to point out that the epaulets that are on Josh's jacket are also made of cardboard, and are just like so like, yeah, Peiyi made those. And there's like, and it's like twine too, right, Josh?
Oh yeah,
It's like perfectly curled twine and cardboard.
And foam core. So, yeah, it's remarkable.
Amazing. I'm going to ask the next question, which was my question is about the process. When and how did Caroline create the animation? What was live? What was pre-recorded? What software, etc., was used?
So all the animation happened pretty much the past 10 days. So it's probably the fastest turnaround time I've ever had for all of the animation. It was definitely a marathon, and it was just really great to collaborate with everyone and brainstorm, how can we make all these different parts and kind of layer it all together. And I had an amazing collaborator to help assist with some of the animations, Eman Akram Nader. And yeah, the process was a combination of, I drew all the illustrations, and I did a lot of collage, found photos, and there was stop motion. The tunnel scene that you all saw was actually from this book, and it really literally had carved a hole through the book. So that was shot in camera, and it took longer than you'd think it would take to carve through a book.
And it's a thesaurus, right?
It's a thesaurus, and yeah, I found it at a thrift store for $1, and it just perfect thickness for making a hole.
Thank you so much, Bill. Really appreciate it. I am so obsessed with that book. That is just, I'm obsessed with it. I mean, obviously the piece depends a lot on the animation, that whole first section, because there are so many deaths, and we here at Theater in Quarantine say we can do anything, that nothing's impossible. And when we said that to Julia said, sure, here's 29 different deaths, from, the most innocuous to a pterodactyl in a time warp. And so I guess I'd love, I lost the question. Where was it? It's here. I'm segueing. It's a big segue. Julia, talk a little bit about first the origin of the project itself. We're going to backtrack for those who weren't at the earlier talk back, and talk a bit about the piece, where it came from, and then we'll get to Jaynie's question about the chat.
Yeah. Well, the lovely folks at New George's, Susan emailed me being like, hey, do you want to do this thing? Do you want to work with these folks on this thing? And yeah, I remember sort of seeing a couple of the YouTube videos and being like, oh yeah, that seems up my alley. I feel like I could do that. Yes, and exactly as Josh said, they were like, yeah, you could do anything in here. And I was like, okay, anything. It came from a lot of different places. I had mentioned sort of in the previous show that I sort of, part of the reason why New George's thought of me for this project is I was working with their Audrey residency on a piece called Akira Kurosawa Explains His Movies and Yogurt with Live and Active Cultures, which is a similarly very long title. And that is sort of a part of a series of plays that I'm writing about sort of like important Japanese figures who sort of made like a very big effect globally. And all of those plays have very long titles. Although long titles is like my general specialty, it's not just limited to the to that series. So yeah, I was kind of like, okay, like what? So this is kind of like the reverse of like an American who had a very big impact on Japan. Yeah, and yeah, again, like I'm always into sort of impossible stage directions. and also keeping it sort of simple. It's like sort of simple and also so complicated. And yeah, I remember saying to Josh and Katie Rose, like, oh yeah, that means I can use a lot of impossible stage directions. And so of course I decided on all these deaths, and I sort of thought about this title sort of randomly in my sleep once, and I was like, oh, that's really funny. What if I played into that a lot? Yeah, and especially with, it's just white people have really been acting crazy this 2021, always, but it's been really sort of just sort of a mass amount of sort of tragic events, one after the other, just, yeah, had me thinking about sort of, where I was in that. And so I guess that's sort of how I ended up entering the piece too. Yeah. Wait, was that the end of the question? I can't remember what else was the end of the question.
Speaking of like the crazy things and your entrance point, like let's talk about the chat, the conversation, as it were. Now, I for those of you who are wondering, yes, Julia is indeed typing live from her apartment, and I'm so glad we did this. Even though it's such a dangerous tool that sometimes works, sometimes doesn't, allows for typos, and yet there's a sort of imperfection there that allows the text to have a humanity that like purely computer animated typography might not. But Julia, talk a bit about the evolution of that, because it's gone through a lot of different drafts, and how did you imagine coming into it originally versus like where the process has taken you?
Yeah, when I wrote it, I definitely was not thinking that I was going to type it live, or else I definitely would not have made it. So there'd be so much of it. Nor did I know that typing live would be so nerve-wracking. It was very, the typos, like all the imperfections, I feel very, very vulnerable in a different way than if I was maybe just on screen talking. But it was funny, sort of this performance, I felt like, I could I was sort of comfortable with enough that I was like, oh, I could kind of play around with this as you would as an actor, sort of like, like having a part and being comfortable enough in it to find new colors in it and try different things, which was kind of exciting to be able to kind of land in that space. Yeah, and I think that conversation is always sort of always reflecting sort of where I am at in every moment, and it is so much about searching and sort of figuring out like what it is I'm trying to do, which I'm not even really sure of half the time, and so I feel like it's sort of always reflecting. It's the current one is sort of reflecting where I am now, and then maybe in another month it would have been something else.
Well, and that really speaks to something that we always really strive for is both liveness, like Josh said, trying to do as much of as many things live as possible, even though they make our lives 1,000 times more difficult. But also nowness is a really important thing. So it felt really exciting to, because we're working on such a short time span, that Julia, when did we start? I feel like, when did we actually start talking? It was like January, February.
Can we also ask Susan? Was like when?
Oh yeah.
When did this?
I think we started talking in November, but nothing had. Then ideas actually started floating around, and you guys connected in January.
But it's funny because we had
a conversation about what, and we taken sort of the tour. There's a tour, taking the tour of how this all works and what the facilities are, which was very exciting. But then it didn't really start till January. Okay.
And Susan, what were you looking for? Because this was a commission, really, from New Georges. We asked New Georges, we were like, look, we love you, and you have been like in the chat for a year, and we were just like so grateful that the New Georges family has been so supportive, and so we approached you and said, would you be interested in working on something, and we're so glad you did, and then you found Julia, or then you approached Julia, let's say, because you had found Julia.
Yes, I mean we're also theatricality hogs.
Yeah.
So we feel a real affinity, and I felt that when you guys started doing what you do, it was the one thing that I think we all agreed it was the one thing we wanted to watch, and then it was just so genius to take what you have and be able to make something of it in this way, and then watching the progress and it expanding. And so when you asked us to come along, it was very, very exciting, and that it would be a commission to a playwright was very, very exciting. And of course, we have a community of many playwrights, but because Julia has been in our residency program this year, we've been getting to know Julia a little bit. It felt like I said the last time, Sonya Sobieski, our new play advocate, thought of Julia immediately. Deidre Harrington thought of Deidre immediately, our associate director and producer. It was sort of there's something about the idea of, I mean, we sort of only knew about the yogurt and the Kurosawa at that juncture, but there was just something that felt like it was gonna jive there. And so we were so happy when she said yes and then jumped in so wholly and fully, which is as expected, I think. So I think it worked out really well, because you sort of never know when you're bringing someone to combine and be in a collaboration that's this deep. And I just want to also say that it's been really exciting to get to observe this collaboration, and it really is so spectacular in terms of the conversation. And obviously we haven't been in these conversations for such a long time, but to see things happen on the fly. And when we took that tour and when we spoke at first, you're like, every day is tech, everything is tech, we just do tech, we're always in tech. And it's really true about your energy and spirit of doing that. Pretty amazing, show.
Well, I mean, it's also, heavy material to be diving into with people that you've never really worked with before. And Katie Rose, and actually much of this team are first-time collaborators, and that's so exciting. There's a bunch of questions. Also, I want to apologize. I hear that it's a little choppy right now, so thank you if you're sticking with us. And some people are, so I'm impressed. We're still going to keep talking and answering your questions.
We're like live radio right now.
Well, there you go. And I tried to do my trick, too. It didn't work. So Julia has asked, what's the other Julia, what was the hardest death to figure out the physicality for and what you were going to do? I assume physicality, also animation, and sound, frankly. Like, what was the hardest death for you, Caroline, and also for you, Renee?
I will say, aesthetically, honestly, the hardest one was cat pee, because I think from the very beginning I was like, what are we going to do for that? And I think it was really, and we had a lot of different ideas, and it's kind of beautiful how it was very minimal and got the job done, as everything stacked on top of each other. Yeah. But funny enough, the most physically difficult one was actually the hurricane. And we actually tried to build a hurricane physically that was more like a tornado. And I swear it took like all day to build it. And it just did not look right. And then what was so funny is we're like, wait, this is just not working. And then started just take some cotton balls and stretch it out and realize, wait, that looks way more like a hurricane than actually building a structure. So I love those kind of surprises with making. Like sometimes if you overthink something, then you just gotta scale it back and get more minimal.
That was the cotton balls. I was wondering what was the cotton balls earlier. Okay, hi Peiyi.
Yeah, the hurricane.
Wow.
Hi Peiyi.
Oh, I love it. Hey,
It's very noisy. Yeah, it's very noisy where you are, Peiyi.
I'm at a bar.
Great.
I'm at Phoebe's,
Yes.
actually.
Phoebe's? Oh, say hi to that place.
Yeah. Hi, Phoebe. Look at that.
I'm coming over right now. I'll be there in 15.
I want to make sure that Renee gets a chance to respond to the question before we move on. Renee,
Yes.
what was the most difficult death for you?
I think it was the entire sort of pterodactyl sequence. It was the hardest because it was the most complex, but it was also the most fun. And I think it was the most fun to watch. So, hard work pays off, I guess.
It's so fun. It's my favorite thing ever to exist.
It was
Yeah.
a little sad. Those of you who weren't with us the earlier show, we had a big tech glitch in the middle of the pterodactyl sequence. We had to replay it, and it worked the second time. But whoa.
Then we got to see it twice.
That's true. It's better the second time. But anyway, it worked seamlessly tonight, and that was super exciting. Whew. Hey, Peiyi. Tell us.
Hey, so far you've missed a lot of love about cardboard hats, and then I told everyone about the cardboard epaulets. So just
Yes, the
everyone's
hats.
been sending you lots of love.
I still have a little bit of paint on me.
Told you. We have another question, which is, was there a monitor that I was looking at to time the reactions? Yes, there was. It's actually our first time working with a monitor. We've never worked with a monitor before. We don't usually do it because then, like anyone with cue cards or anything, the tendency is to actually look at them. And so usually I perform blind. And we've even done that with remote performers where we're all just blind and going by audio. And that's, it's great. But this was exciting because we actually needed the monitor for Julia to be able to figure out what she was typing. And so Julia was remoting into my computer and typing into my Isadora program, which is our video processor that we use to do everything. And so all the typing was live. All of the, my favorite, like Katie, Rose, and Julia, you were coming up with some amazing stuff in the past day where, like, suddenly I was being outlined by text. And I didn't even know that was a thing until I'm in the show and I look at the monitor. I'm like, oh, that's happening.
It's beautiful, right?
It's gorgeous.
It's so beautiful.
So I tried to interact as minimally with the monitor as possible, but it became sort of essential for that section. And that's how I was timing that out. Usually we just time it out with bleeps and bloops, which we also did in this show. Julia can attest, because she heard all of the bleeps and bloops.
I did hear all the bloops.
And me occasionally telling myself in recordings to get the stool.
Get the stool.
Stool. Flat. Shrimp. Again, all of these pieces are... Oh, sorry. Go ahead, Kara.
No. All the pieces are what?
Oh, all these pieces are just... We do them in 3 weeks. And so, of course, everything is sort of built to make the most complex, most rigorous pieces of theater that are still performable at, like, a full production scale within 3 weeks. So, we have our little shortcuts. KR, go ahead.
I just wanted to go back to the Lynn asked a lovely question about Caroline, and then also the what was live and what was pre-recorded, which I feel like we sort of answered. But I do actually want you to talk about the software that's being used, because it really, I feel like, uniquely illustrates how you and Julia are working together, and how that then comes to us as the audience.
Yeah, sure. I mean, so...
Oh, and then also, when you're doing that, will you talk about how Renee did the sound? Because Renee is in Singapore.
Oh, boy. Yeah, it's amazing. Well, I think Renee can talk about it, the sound. First, I guess I'll talk about the software. So we use a program called Isadora, but we're using a bunch of programs on this piece. so much so that it sometimes breaks things. But Isadora is our video processor, and so that's where we have this typing patch. That, you know what, I should probably know the screen name of the person who wrote that typing patch. You are wonderful, person who wrote the typing patch that we're using and that you posted online. It's amazing. And if you're on the Isadora forum, you can find them. And you know what? That's a small group of people in the long run, I bet. Anyway, it's to say that that's our video processor, and our we use QLab for audio, and we're using a ton of different other audio programs and other video programs, including Skype, including a program called Sounders. So we're taking Julia's video from Skype, throwing that into Isadora, sending audio back and forth through Sounders and through a specially developed program called MiQ, Mixing in Quarantine, which was made for us by a sound designer who's worked with us before named Alex Hawthorn, that allows us to do all of this routing of sound so that I can hear Julia, Julia can hear me, you can hear Julia, but you can't always hear me talking to Julia, and things like that. And so there's a lot of sound going back and forth that you're not hearing. And also so that we can hear typing sounds, which and occasionally Julia sighing. So that's the setup in general. It's fairly elaborate, but we also used a remote desktop. We've used a bunch of different ones over the course of the year. Right now we're on TeamViewer, which could be the Cisco WebEx of remote desktops a year from now. You never know. It's like sometimes we're doing a show and we're like, this is the program, but then it never gets used again.
There was a really short period of time where Theater in Quarantine was using Cisco WebEx for it was one show. Which have you heard of it? No. But we thought it was going to be the new Zoom, and it was not.
It wasn't. But we used TeamViewer to allow Julia to remote into the computer and type. But it also was essential for Renee. Renee, you mind taking it away? What was the process of working on this? And have you actually done a lot of remote stuff from Singapore? I'm also interested.
I mean, yes and no. This would be the second live show. The first live show, the second show, and remote desktop was very, very helpful, especially from the hours of 11 p.m. and 2 a.m. my time. A couple hours ago. It was very helpful and kind of not groundbreaking, world breaking, border breaking, which I think was really super
magical.
Cool.
It was kind of magical.
Yeah. And it went, relatively smoothly. And I was moving Josh's mouse on his computer from 10,000, I'm not sure how many miles away it is, but for many miles away. And it worked, surprisingly. It's a 12-hour time difference, and we also made it work. And it's not a one queue kind of show, so that was really cool. Very, very cool. Really test the limits of what you can and cannot do.
I mean, this is classic Theater in Quarantine here, but I do like to tell the audience this every now and then. We did not have sound until today. Now, Renee had been working on it, but because of time differences and all of this, it really didn't come into the process that we were hearing in runs. That being said, we really didn't run until today. Is that a E? Should I not tell that?
We did a run last night, which then made us have to do some script changes, which again is that's so Theater in Quarantine.
So Theater in Quarantine.
You're
anyway, it's to say it was kind of amazing watching this mouse move from across the world and just dropping a ton of sound into this show, and it really. It holds the whole thing together in a really amazing way, particularly, obviously, the first half. We speak a lot about how sound has become so essential in this digital format, because and obviously, I mean, I think all of us are in many ways like art theater artists that love sound, but it's become like so it's cinematically essential. Like it becomes the logic that drives how we actually view images on screen, which for theater artists is slightly different. And so it's amazing how it tied the entire show together in the most exciting way, Renee. So thank you for doing that work. I feel Caroline nodding as well and going like, yes, yes.
I wouldn't have been able to make those sounds if Caroline didn't create such bombastic animations. So love that.
No.
That's such a good word for describing it too.
I love that word choice. It was so satisfying, Renee, to kind of like with the different explosions or pops or it just they really. I'm just so happy that you made all this amazing sound environment for the animations. It was really great.
We're getting a lot of
what? I know there's suddenly like a surge of chat.
Of chat comments. I would love to hear from Peiyi. How noisy is it still in the place that you're in?
This is what it sounds like.
No, we hear you perfectly.
There might be a sound designer over there.
Hi, Shab!
Another TiQ friend. Hi, Shab.
He's worked him out capacity. Okay.
I apologize. I just came out of another final dress. So.
But we hear you.
Why.
We hear you great.
Oh, great! Oh, wonderful.
Yeah. Katie Rose, you had a question for Peiyi?
Oh no, I just wanted Peiyi to talk about constructing the costume.
Oh yes. The main elements, the boots, the jackets, the pants, the shirts, those and the belts, those all come from TDF Costume Collection, which I have not been to since everything closed down. So that was really exciting to go back there. They're a wonderful resource for all of us. The hat is a cardboard hot glue spray paint craftastic. I finished painting it this morning in my backyard. The epaulets, which we were very fascinated about in the research images that we had found. We really wanted to exaggerate both those elements to kind of make the Commodore Matthew Perry feel a little bit like a cartoon type of character, almost like a paper cutout character. We talked a lot about that. Mm-hmm. And those are foam, rope, and a lot of other hot glue and spray paint.
Peiyi, look at Josh for a second, and this is how Josh was wearing the hat for a good deal of rehearsal until I was like,
amazing.
I think it's amazing. I think it's like total Captain Crunch. It's perfect.
JR's main comment was, please don't make it look like a taco.
It's true. It's true.
I would call that the taco position.
Full on taco.
Thanks, Becky. Enjoy Thebes. Well, I mean, it seems like we're kind of wrapping things up here. So we'd like to do one. We like to end things with final thoughts here at the Late Show. I'm sure I have spray paint on my head now.
You do. Yeah, it's so good.
It is. So we like to end things with final thoughts. Final thoughts can be anything that's on your mind here at the Late Show. Anything at all. It can be promotional. It can be a random thought. It can be gratitude. Whatever you want. But we're going to do final thoughts. And Peiyi, I'm going to make you start because you're in a crowded bar.
Oh, wait. What are the final thoughts?
Any final thoughts? You haven't done final thoughts. We didn't do final thoughts during TiQ.
I've never done final thoughts.
Yeah, this is the past like 6 months.
I'm just so glad to have been a part of this project Yeah, I'm so glad to see you, Renee. We haven't even met. Yes, these are not very eloquent final thoughts, but it was just an honor to work with everybody on this. And I was very moved by the final monologue, Julia, especially in the run earlier today. Like I feel like I really hit home for me in a lot of ways. So my heart to everyone.
It was a miracle that this show.
Thank you, Peiyi.
Renee, final thoughts.
I want to say that, thank you for, taking a chance on a sound designer that is very far away, where I think is in line with the, now that I'm realizing in line with sort of the way TiQ does things, which is we pick the best way, not the easiest way. Picking me was not the easiest way, for sure. But I think it worked out well and is a great testament to how, when there is a will, there will be a way, and the way will show itself. And it did. So I'm very glad to be a part of this show, specifically this show, which was so funny and also, I think, timely and just well written and funny. So I really enjoyed it.
Thank you.
I didn't mean to insist on gratitude. I just it comes up.
You said all the things. You said it can be promotional. It can be funny.
Okay,
it can be gratitude.
I wanted to make sure that I wasn't pushing it.
We've had people in the past who are just like, well, I got this thing coming up.
It's true. If you can also say that, Josh, you were really annoying today, which I kind of was. So.
Well, I guess I'll go next. I just I want to repeat basically. I feel the same way as Renee and Peiyi, of just the creative synergy of everyone coming together, and especially where it's like, maybe it's not the easiest way, but it's the best way. And like, wait, actually there is time to do that. There's another way around it. And I also thank you all so much for your patience for the animation, because some parts took faster, some parts like, oh, that's actually going to take longer than thought. But I don't know, it was just really exciting to be on like a marathon of making this, and I just had so much fun. And I really love that this theater piece is both the satire that's really funny and creative, but also so poignant and so timely. So I love pieces that have that balance.
Thanks. Susan?
Yes, I'm going to keep going with the gratitude. I'm really sorry. This was amazing. It was wonderful. I'm so grateful to have met Caroline and Renee and Peiyi. Your work is astounding to me. Your grace and amazingness in the rehearsals, unbelievable. I'm just, hopefully we'll work again together soon. And then I already know, of course, Julia and Josh and KR. So that goes without saying. No, I'm really, really happy we were asked. This was really a highlight of this weird time, and I feel very proud. So thank you.
Julia.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like I have nothing but gratitude to pour out. Yeah, thank you so much to Susan and Jaynie and Deirdre and Sonya, everybody at New George's, for thinking of me and for giving me this opportunity, and to Josh and Katie Rose for really really flying with the punches. As the script kept changing, and it was just very unclear what was going to come out at the end of the day, and what came out was more than like what I could have hoped for. Also, it's just I feel like it's so rare to. I mean, I guess it's a lot of digital theater is like happening right now, but it's like. I don't know. It's so rare for a playwright to get to like write something and then have it be produced immediately, like have it be sort of like up immediately, like in full, like there were costumes and there was sound and there was animation. It was like so it was so cool that just happened within a matter of months. And I'm so grateful to these designers. Like, my goodness, like what a beautiful beautiful thing. Caroline's animations were just so spot on and so funny and and so wonderful, and Peiyi, like all of your input as we were sort of putting together the piece, as well as the costumes were just so amazing, and Renee, my gosh, the sound, adding the sound today, I was like, wow, this is it, like this is the thing that was missing the whole time. So yeah, I'm very grateful to have been given an opportunity to just like do something and then have it sort of appear for the masses, which is yeah, kind of amazing. I'm like, you know, as we sort of talked about through this, like a sort of irreverence with heart is maybe a way to describe my brand, and so thank you for capturing that brand.
Yes.
I'm writing that down.
Put it on your website.
Maybe I should.
I'll go next.
Ooh.
Crazy, right? Shaking it up.
Ooh.
So yes, gratitude to all. But and truly, like, what I'm so excited by always is in like an extremely short matter of time, people can work at the peak of their skill, and I'm always just, you know, in a community that cherishes long development. I'm like constantly like beyond excited to just share first impulses, and always like that the fact is that the work is there so often. And so thank you all. Now, as a Sondheim freak, I also want to briefly mention, and I think I'm the Sondheim freak that is you know, referenced. Although did that get cut?
Me. I cut it. I cut the reference. I'm sorry.
I tried to consult the recent script. I couldn't even tell. So that got cut. There used to be a reference to Sondheim freaks, who are the only people who know who Commodore Matthew Peiyi is. And it's true. It's so true, right, Susan? And I recall once like seeing I don't know, a doc or reading something they said about like the only way that character could be portrayed was like as a monster, and that it's a character with no lines in Pacific Overtures, and it just appears in a dance at the very end of Act 1, and it's a cool moment, and it's so interesting that it's a similar impulse. It's like, how do you deal with these historical monsters, and we're grappling with the same exact thing, and it's exciting to like. I guess I have no direction here. I knew where I was starting. I don't know where I'm going, which is my life, but all of ours. But it's to say, I guess, it remains fascinating to tangle with these monsters of history, and I'm just like so thrilled with where Julia went with it, and that hat, frankly, and even though it hits into the corners of the closet when I turn because it's too big. And anyway, I'm going to pass it off and kind of leave an unfinished thought that started strong, ended poorly, and that's where we are. Which is to say, Katie Rose, finish off final thoughts and also finish off the whole stream while I pour myself.
Oh my goodness. Oh my goodness. So much pressure. But I actually want to pick up where Josh left off, which is just to say that I want to thank everyone here in this Zoom room for, you know, the way that we work is non-traditional, like Josh said, and that usually when we're like developing, especially new plays, you get a lot of time which is lovely. But also, like Josh said, you end up getting pretty far away from your first impulses. And so there's something exciting about just like riding something out, and also being forced to make many decisions, which is like something that we had to do today, was like, what is this thing? What does it look like? What does it sound like? It has to happen now. So what are we going to do? Which isn't for everyone. And I just want to thank all of you for sort of leaning forward in this process and leading with your hearts, and being so courageous with your collaboration, that I feel like it really spowed. And you were, I feel like all of us together were able to create this wonderful thing, spearheaded by Julia's beautiful words. So, and also George's for like connecting us, and like everyone for like just sort of coming together to make this beautiful room that could make this beautiful piece, that asked a lot of tough questions, and didn't attempt to answer them, I think, is what I love most about this piece, is that Julia has created so much space for inquiry, and for just a grappling, without any, just a grappling. So all of you are just so wonderful, and just thank you so much. We'll all get some sleep after this. Okay, so that was my final thought. Josh, I feel like you still have to sign it off, because you're the one who has to end the feed. I can't press the button.
That's true. You can't press the button. I have to. I mean, we could remote you in, but that's a process, and our 24 viewers don't want to deal with that. So, again, thank you to those of you who are still watching. Really appreciate you for tuning in to Theater in Quarantine and tonight's performance. Thank you, all of you. In 3 weeks, Gary Fitch and Culture Hub and La Mama. Subscribe, donate, all the things. Look, things are starting to open up. And, we are dealing with that every day. And we don't know where we're going to go next. And we don't exactly know. We know that we have some performances in the next couple of weeks. We know we're going to keep trying to push forward. The digital theater is probably not going to go away. We know that much. But it's a strange, interesting time, but we're still in the closet. That's for certain.
I think they're going to go to Phoebe's.
Oh my gosh, I'm going right now. I think they're open till midnight now. That's an hour and a half. I could meet you there.
Oh my gosh.
Sorry. Go ahead. It was very beautiful. I'm sorry. I'm such a,
No, you just gave me an idea. Are you kidding? I don't have to be here alone at the end of a show at like the old times.
This is thrilling. Oh. New days.
Anyhow, we're still here in the closet. The cabin fever is real. That much is true. So thank you all. Have a good night. And we'll see you in 3 weeks.